Welcome to the Lure Lab, where we dive into baits and techniques to help you catch more bass. The Lure Lab is a part of the Serious Angler Network, which is brought to you by Omnia Fishing. And all products that we discuss today that are available on Omnia will be listed down below in the description, so you can save 10% by clicking those links and typing in Serious 10 at checkout. But as always, I'm your host, the Captain, Andrew Fall, and we have an awesome episode for you here today on the Lure Lab. We have Beau Browning, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro, joining us, and we are talking all things bladed jigs, from the mini max all the way to the big blade. What sizes, colors, trailers, should you trim the skirt, not trim the skirt? It's all in this episode, so I hope you enjoy it. And we're going to get started here. So let's get Beau on. All right. And we are joined by Beau Browning, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro this year on the tour, right? And man, how's it going today?
It's going good. I've been on the road for 3 weeks now, and fished 2 Elite Series back to back, and then a Kentucky Lake Bass Open on top of that. So I'm back home now and just kind of unwinding, chilling, and just recuperating a little bit, I guess you could say, before the next couple weeks of fishing and the Classic, and getting ready for the next big string of things.
Oh man, the Classic should be fun in Dallas,
Oh,
right? Yeah, can't wait to get down there. It's gonna be nice and warm.
nice and warm. I think I'm doing the Celebrity Pro-Am right before the Classic, so I'm
Oh,
excited
awesome!
to
That'd
see
be a
how
good
that
time.
meet some cool people.
Yeah, and like I always look at the weather in Texas this time of year, and I'm like, man, sure wish it was 80 here.
Yeah,
But
sure wish fish were bedding right now.
yeah, as people are listening to this, we actually have a couple days this week that will be near 70 degrees. So I'm like really excited about that. It's already
Right.
shorts weather for us up here in Western New York. Once we get above 30 degrees, you start seeing like odd things like jackets, shorts, and flip flops. So
Right.
it's a weird time to be in the north, but the boat's coming out here soon. But today, I wanted to invite you on here, and this is from Bailey. He asked Easton who we should reach out to, right? And
Mm.
Easton said you. So you got recommended to be reached out to for a bladed jig episode, because he said, I don't, these are loose quotes, but he said that you might be the best bladed jig fisherman he knows. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. So Easton's no, he's a frequent flyer, it seems like, lately on our main network page. So we'll have
Right.
to get you on an episode there here
Yeah.
in the future. But we're going to come right out firing. And, bladed jigs, chatterbaits. I know you're affiliated with Z-Man, but what
Right.
3 chatterbaits should everyone have in their arsenal, and why?
The go-to staple, and I feel like this is no surprise, but obviously the jackhammer, and I feel like it doesn't need much explanation because it's a fish catcher. Everybody knows about it. A little bit higher price point at that $15-$16 range normally. It's a little bit pricey, but it's a fish catcher. I mean, everybody and their brother has a jackhammer. Uh, from there, the new Tungsten Evo by Z-Man. I mean, it is the regular Evo is very, very good too, especially if you want to, get into chatterbait fishing at a little bit lower price range. Like, it's a very good, affordable chatterbait, catches plenty of fish. Uh, Nothing negative to say about it whatsoever. But the tungsten version is a little bit more expensive than the regular, but it's something about the way the head hits the blade. It's got that different pitch, clicking when it's winding through the water. Also, you're very, very, very connected with the bait with that tungsten head. When you're winding it, you feel it way more, and it's just you stay very in tune with it, like especially around like grass and stuff where you're getting stuff on your bait. Uh, but it triggers a different bite. It's like having that little bit different crankbait. That I would say if you have a Strike King 1.5 and then a Lucky Craft 1.5, it just does a little bit something different. And there's times when it shines. Uh, and then from there I would go to a Chatterbait Elite original elite. I mean, and I know that's probably kind of out of left field for a lot of people because we've been in this jackhammer Evo wave for so long now. But the deal with that elite original is it is such a good big fish targeting chatterbait. And I know a lot of people probably think the big blade, and it is in times and situations. But like if I go to a Santee Cooper, a Lake Okeechobee, St. John's River, uh, I will find instances, Sam Rayburn too, I'll find instances where that elite is really, really good for targeting those bigger fish. And what I'll do is I'll throw like a big paddle tail on the back of it, either like a diesel minnows, a Z-Man diesel minnows, maybe even like one of the big Kitech swim baits on the back end of it. I'll throw like a really bulky paddle tail trailer and just hone that thing in for those big bites. But if I had to narrow it really down, it would be a tungsten Evo and a jackhammer. I mean, that's the two baits that in my boat, I keep a jackhammer box, and it's got every color, every size of a jackhammer, and then I've got a Evo box, which is regular Evos, tungsten Evos, and then I've also got a whole row in there of mini maxes. That's just to have them in there because those when it comes to play, it does. But
Yeah, that mini max is like the new crave. It seems like
oh
everyone's
yeah,
talking about it, right?
oh, and we've got something coming down the line with Z-Man. I don't know if you've heard about it, but we've got something coming. I just got mine
I've
yesterday.
seen some previews, some
Yeah,
pictures and videos on the internet, and I'm like,
we got
wonder what
cool,
this is.
real cool stuff coming. So, but that mini max, you kind of, in my mind, I want to have it. But that's what I will say is like in my boat, I've got jackhammers, Evos slash tungsten Evo, mini maxes, and then I've got another smaller box of the elites, and the elites are like green pumpkin, black and blue, white, just kind of basic colors. But it's when I'm targeting. It's almost like when you go to a place and you feel like you're around biggins and you want to try to target them and you like pick up a mag draft. You
Right,
know,
100%. Yeah,
it's
and
the
the
same thought
and
process.
on the Chatterbait Elite, I never really threw that one much, but if I remember correctly, the line tie connector on the blade is a little bit different than the jackhammer too, right? Or the
Yeah,
tungsten
it's
Elite.
almost like
It's
it's
like
not a snap,
closed and it's not a clip.
right? It's like an arm that's twisted, and it's a really strong snap. You can throw that bait on like heavy rods and big line, and not have to worry about anything given.
Got it. Interesting. So, if you had to like, there's probably hundreds of different variations if you go through all the different bladed jigs and chatterbaits out by Z-Man, right? Like,
Mm.
if you could tell anyone what three colors to choose, why should someone choose these three colors, and what would they be? And I guess to add on to it, like, how do you choose what color to throw based on conditions?
If I had to give three that I would live and die by, it would be a white, green pumpkin, black and blue. And I mean, I feel like that's a pretty generic. You know, you got your green pumpkin, bluegill style, white for shad, black and blue for real dirty water. If I had to just carry three with me at any times, it would be those. But a lot of it, and I mean, this I could write a book. I feel like on color picking color and why I
Sure.
pick color. Like you're looking at forage. That's the first thing. You're looking at watercolor, and you're looking at time of the year. Uh, like in the spring, I really like to tend to lean towards like a green pumpkin or something. That's because it's the bass that time of year just really hate bluegill, and even in the winter too. And a lot of times that kind of falls into the crawfish side of things as well. Um, but like a green pumpkin, that early springtime just really seems to be strong if your water's clean. If you got dirty water, that early springtime is more of like a fire crawl time of the year, red time of the year. And then you go to early summer is kind of where those shad patterns start to come out. You got shad spawns playing a factor. You've got mainly the shad spawns, and then if you have some dirty water, it kind of plays in. That's where I'll break out like a spot remover or clear water shad, and like a shad spawn scenario. But it's just a good time to throw those shad patterns, I guess. And then in the middle of all that, you do have to think about dirty water. When water gets real dirty, uh, white and chartreuse, and I'm talking about real dirty, white and chartreuse and a black and blue. Normally in the colder water situations, I'm going to go with the black and blue because I feel like that's just going to trigger more bites. And then in the warmer, dirty water situations, I'm going to go with like a chartreuse white, or even just a plain white, maybe the dirty shad color in the jackhammer with the gold blade on a white body. Uh, there's a lot that kind of plays into that. But if I had to narrow it down to three, if somebody was going out to buy chatterbaits, as I said, I'm going to get three colors to fish all over the place. I'm going to say green pumpkin, black and blue, and a white, and that's just going to keep it as basic as possible.
And I'm no like expert or pro throwing bladed jigs, but I'm right there with you. I'm white, green pumpkin, but black and blue, I don't really throw that. I was so mad when Z-Man and the jackhammer brought the all black matte
I
one to the US market. I was
think
like,
I've
dang
got
it.
my phone's propping up. I'm pretty sure on right here.
I was
The
like,
my phone. Yeah, you want to talk about chatterbait fishing? This is what my phone's sitting on is tungsten evos and jackhammers. But
oh
yeah,
man. I was so mad when they brought the all matte black one to the US market. I'm like, there goes
mm-hmm.
my secret chatterbait. Everyone's gonna throw it now. Yeah.
Blackjack,
Yeah, that
black
thing.
there.
That's the money right there.
That is the money. I love a blackjack.
Oh man, that thing! I've caught more big ones on that around like
Mm-hmm.
bluegill spawn than any other bladed jig, and I'll take like a green pumpkin trailer and dip the tail of it
Right.
in chartreuse, and it's just unreal.
And that's something about like those straight colors, like a straight black
Hmm.
is you can take the trailers and really start doing your dissecting with. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, I'm so bad when it. I was like, now it's easier to get, but I was like, dang it,
Right. Well, used to we would take whites and we would paint them red,
yeah.
like and now we have fire crawl.
Yeah, and then there's like two or three different color like craw ones now too, right? Like Tackle Warehouse has their own, and then I think some guys will rip the skirt off and make their own out of like the
Mhm.
golden shad heads. It's fun messing with tackles, what we love to do. So,
Oh, yeah.
but here's the big question: does blade color matter, and why?
I think it does in certain instances. I think like when you get in those, a lot of that has to do with wind. In my opinion, that's when I really start thinking about blade color. Like when you have wind present on like these clear bodies of water, I'm going to start to lean towards like a more flashy blade, something that's going to shine a little bit. Whereas if it's slick, calm, and like I'll give you a scenario. Like here on Lake Washita in the spring, that green pumpkin's a big deal, but the water clarity's pretty clear.
Mhm.
3, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet deep
It's like
visibility.
Northern Lake at that point.
Right, it's a highland reservoir. The
Yeah.
water's clear. If the wind doesn't blow, I throw a green pumpkin with the green pumpkin blade. If the wind does blow, I throw a green pumpkin and I'll take it and either shave the paint off of a blade or I will put modify it and put like a shiny or silver blade on there just to kind of trigger a little bit more. And then the stealth blade comes into play too with it when it
I
gets
always forget about
really
that thing.
really slick, really stagnant, a lot of pressure. Gunnersville, I saw that play a lot when I was fishing around there a bunch. Was like it was slick, calm. There's so many people that fish Gunnersville that stealth blade really came out to shine in those situations. But blade color does matter. But in my mind, the way I look at it's a lot to do with wind,
Yeah.
uh, wind and watercolor. I mean, if you're in dirty water, having and it could go both ways, but a lot of guys will say, "Oh, I want a real flashy gold blade, in dirty water." And then a lot of guys will be like, "No, I just want to dull down a matte blade or something like that." But in my opinion, I want more of a shiny gold blade flashing around in that dirty water. Unless it's super, super cold, then I'll go with like a black and blue with a black blade.
Yeah.
Because those fish are not going to be really reacting. And you're more trying to hit them in the face anyways. You're going more for feel anyways. So you
Try not
don't.
to scare them with the big and flashy.
Right. You're just trying to hit them in the mouth and make them react to it. If that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. So, man, bladed jigs are fun. I'm like trying to envision catching like it's usually one of the first bites I get bit, like baits I get bit on every year is a bladed
Mhm.
jig. The water's super cold, and I'm like find that fresh milfoil on one of our inland lakes and just slowly hopping it out. And I'm
Right.
like, oh man, my question for you is like, what dictates what trailer you throw? Because you could have minnows, boot
Mhm.
tails, craws, straight baits. Like, which ones do you like to use and when?
The big thing for me now is that new chatter shed, and I know like everybody loves a lot of guys love a Zaco and stuff, and it is a very good trailer. But for me, I was a big Zaco guy a while ago, and then truthfully, when I started throwing the Elastec stuff, it ran good. I didn't have to go through near as many of them, and in my mind, I was just like, I'm way more efficient because I'm not going through a ton of plastic. Not to take anything away from the Zaco, it's a hell of a chatterbait trailer, believe me. But I can throw a razor shad, the new chatter shad, Elastec stuff, and really, not go through near as many baits and things like that. But now the biggest one that I throw day in, day out is the chatter shad. And it's something about that little bit slimmer profile. It's got a good kind of shad tail on it, like the razor shad does. It hunts well with that slim profile, is what I like the most. And then a razor shad's good for kind of bulking up that profile, but not doing too much in the
Mhm.
back end. Uh, and then now we have the chatter spikes too. If it gets kind of finicky, I feel like I'm really trying to draw some extra bites. I'll go with that. Or if I'm having to really kind of get a little bit more finessey, I'll go with that chatter shad or the chatter spike. A lot
Yeah,
of chatter, a lot of spikes and shads going around,
too many.
but it's like I like the stinger tail. I like the razor shad. I like the chatter shad. All that stuff. The chatter shad, in my mind, is like the perfect middle meeting ground.
Hmm.
Now, if I'm on the Arkansas River and I'm winding this thing through the most gnarly stuff I've ever seen in my life, I'm going to throw a goat, the Z-Man goat, and I'm going to rig it, flat so it'll ride up over that stuff. Used to before the goat, we used to throw horny toads on the back end of our chatterbaits, and that would make it ride through that stuff, float, not get
Yeah.
hung up, way more efficient. But now we have the goat, and it's a good one for winding it through the thickest cover possible.
Yeah, I think that's one issue that a lot of people have with like a bladed jig, right? It's like if you get it near wood, it likes to grab
Mm-hmm.
the wood. It doesn't really like to come over it. And that's Z-Man's answer for that, I think, was the big blade, correct?
Right, big blade. And
So,
then we did a lot of that in the Evo too. Was trying to make sure it came through stuff better.
mhm,
So the Evo comes through cover much better than like a jackhammer does.
interesting.
And that was a lot to do with the head design. Put some simple wings on the bottom of it, kind of change it up just a tad bit, but and change the hook up a little bit, and it was crazy what it did. But it does come through cover better than a jackhammer.
The engineering grade is way above my head. I apologize.
It's Jose. Jose is like he's a mad scientist when it comes to this crap, and it blows all of our minds.
I love it. Now, for every one of these bladed jigs, do you have a different setup you throw them on?
So I have my go-to setup, and we just got it perfected last month from Revoltage Japan, and it's a 7.3 medium heavy moderate glass rod that I throw it on. Uh, there's lots of really good chatterbaits. That obviously Revoltage is not available in America, but there's lots of really good chatterbait setups. One close to that would be like the combat stick that Evergreen makes. Really good chatterbait rod. St. Croix makes a lot of good chatterbait rods. I know that because of my dad, obviously. But Daiwa Zillion, they make a 7.3 medium heavy glass, I think, in that rod line. That's a really good chatterbait rod. That's just kind of what I like. A
Yeah.
7.3 medium heavy moderate glass rod, and that's what we designed with Voltage was that same rod, but it's very close to a combat stick, the jackhammer rod, that everybody knows.
Yep.
Uh, and then I throw 16-pound gamma fluorocarbon on it. Granted, for those of y'all that haven't thrown gamma, it runs a little big. If you're a Sunline guy, you're probably going to lean more towards 18, maybe even 20. Seagar, same way. It's going to be probably 20-pound Seagar if you were trying to get the
Yeah.
equivalent. All that comes down to is line diameter. And that line diameter does a lot for how that bait reacts in the water. But
I, I
16,
just I have to pick a bone real fast.
yeah,
You and Thrift have now said gamma, and it kills me on the inside because I love gamma, and it's hard to find as it is in certain
Mhm.
places. So thanks. Now you're making it even harder to find.
Right.
Like Gamma's unbreakable for those who do not know about
Great.
Gamma. It's expensive,
It
but it
is.
is worth every penny.
No doubt. Like all the guys through, like in college fishing, guys come like, "Hey man, do you have any line I can, I need to borrow some 20-pound gamma or whatever." I'd see them the next season. They're like, "I'm still throwing that 20-pound gamma that I got from you last year."
It does not go bad.
It does not go bad, and I can still pull my truck with it out of a ditch if I need to.
Oh man, it's funny. Like I've used Gamma up here for like tournament fishing smallies. I won't do it when I'm like fun fishing stuff, but I'll make sure I have some in the boat. And uh, I was fishing like Destin to Marry, and he was on the Elite Series. He's a good friend. And that's who I was having dinner with tonight before this. He was up in town. But we were boat flipping like 4.5 pound smallies in the tournament because we didn't need them, and we're just laughing. 6 pound Gamma, like
Yeah.
on spinning rods. Like, what are we doing? But it's not breaking. We'll just keep going.
Jake Latendris
Yeah.
from Bassmaster, the videographer, he was my camera guy at Okeechobee, and I was getting hung up in the reed heads and stuff, and I just pull it and it ripped my chatterbait out. And he was like, "Damn, man, what you throwing? What line are you throwing?" I was like,
Gamma.
"Damn, good stuff. I mean, I can clean out this whole lake if I want to."
Yeah, they don't need to spray any herbicides anymore, right?
No.
Just get some Gamma and a Chatterbait.
A couple guys with some gamma out there, and we'll clean out every piece of vegetation in that place.
Love it. Now, what gear ratio reel do you like to use?
7-to-1 is that's a very important thing. In that setup, you got your 7.3 heavy moderate rod, 16-pound gamma if you're throwing gamma, and then a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel is so important because I see guys throw a 6.3, and I see guys throw an 8. I've seen guys throw it on an Abu Garcia rocket too. I agree with that, but I've seen nothing against Abu. That's just not the right gear ratio. But that 7 is like the perfect middle ground when you're winding a chatterbait. You're not overfishing the bait. If one slack lines it and comes beelining at you, you can catch up to them plenty fast enough. And people kind of get in that. When I see guys throwing like an 8 or a 6.3, they're like, "I'm throwing a 6.3 because I can fish it, be more in tune with it while I'm fishing." I'm like, "Yeah, but what about when one slack lines it and comes at you, Then I see guys on the other side, and they're like, "I throw it on an 8 because they're slack lining and coming at me." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're overfishing the bait. In the meantime, you're not getting as many bites." That 7's that perfect middle ground. And, I mean, I throw a Daiwa Zillion, either a Zillion or a Steez. And I really like the Steez with the big paddle handles and all that because I like the paddle handles. But a Daiwa was 7-to-1, and guys would have to look into the exact line that comes in and try to match it with another reel. But a 7-to-1 gear ratio is going to be your all round best gear ratio for throwing a chatterbait. I know Dad is the same way. I think he throws a 7.5 and a lose. And I think it's the same amount of line coming in or something, but it's very close.
Well, yeah, because that Daiwa spool is a lot smaller too than
right.
like a loose, so you have to add that into the gear ratio and line retrieve rates and etc.
And also at the same point, and this is another one of those deals. Like I keep my spools completely fooled up to the bevels. I mean, you have got to because, and it might just be me, but like I can tell when I was at Okeechobee again, I fired out there, hung up in a reed clump, pulled it. I didn't grab my line before I actually pulled the deal, and it dug into my spool a little bit. Well, it burnt some of my line. I can't deal with that, so I peeled off 20 yards of line, and then from then on out, I turned around to Jake and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm not in tune. I went from a 10 out of 10 in tune with my bait to now I'm an 8 out of 10, and I can't handle that. So I had to get down there, dig out another 16 and place it, and the whole 9 yards. But like, you just got to keep it. You got to keep it the same as what it comes down to. And it's the same way with like, you hear guys and they're like, "Oh, he's such a good square biller. He's such a good chatterbait fisherman. He's such a good Carolina rig fisherman." All this stuff. It's like, yeah, but they've got it so in tune because they do it so much that that's their deal because they're so in tune with it. And that's how myself and my dad are. We just have done it so much that we're that in tune with it. And
it's your confidence.
Yeah, it's confidence. It's Your equipment's dialed down to the nitty gritty. Everything is textbook when it comes to those things.
I love it. So I want to go one step further because these ones came in from a couple of the people here, part of the network. One question is, do you throw a different setup for the 3/4 or the 1 1/4 ounce jackhammer? And two, what is your setup for the mini max? Because I'm sure it's a little bit different.
Yeah. So granted, you can throw all those on the same setup. I mean, hook wise, you can throw them all on the same setup. Efficiency wise, I know, and I've got some rods that I throw them on, but I'm just gonna lean away from the voltage side of things because we're talking about people, what they can get in America. So I go to a little bit longer rod when it comes to those bigger chatterbaits, but I go to a softer rod. So like if I had to go buy a rod to throw, everything else reel and line wise would stay the same. But if I had to buy a rod for throwing a 1 ounce or a 1.25, even a 3/4, I would get like a St. Croix Magnum cranker. It's a 710 heavy moderate, and it's a longer rod, but it's real soft. It's a crankbait rod. And it would just make that throwing that big bait and fishing it more efficiently. I've got a similar rod that I throw it in the voltage lineup, but it was like a custom, so I can't really promote it. But that St. Croix 710 Magnum cranker is a really, really good rod for throwing that. And then you go on the other side of things to a mini max. I throw that on a 7-foot medium heavy moderate fast.
Just do like your standard square bill rod or a spinnerbait rod.
And and that's just because I can fish it most efficiently.
Yeah.
I could throw it on the 7.3 heavy or medium heavy glass rod that I throw my regular chatterbaits on. Same with the ounce and 1.25. I could do that as well, but just when you're getting real nitty gritty with it, I change it a little bit. But it's still 16-pound gamma fluorocarbon, 7-to-1 dye with steez, and that's how I rock with it.
Love that. Yeah, I feel like now this is I don't know if this is an odd question. I just thought of it, but when would somebody go lighter than a 1/2 ounce with a bladed jig, especially in the jackhammer? And I don't know if it's just me, like when I fish it, but I feel like the 1/2 ounce just feels better than the 3/8. But why would somebody want to go to a 3/8, or would you just tell them fish a 1/2 ounce or heavier?
See, I throw a 3/8 99% of the time.
Oh, all right.
Crazy because my dad
is a 1/2 ounce guy
at the time, and it's just a weird deal. That's like I throw the 3/8 because in my mind, I can fish it as shallow as I want, and I can slow it down if I need to, and get it a little bit deeper. Then the tungsten Evo comes out, and you can wind a 3/8 tungsten Evo, and it's going to get down the exact same as a 1/2 ounce jacket because the head design's a little bit smaller, it runs a little bit deeper. But that's a whole preference thing. But back to the deal is if somebody came to me and was buying chatterbaits, I would say buy 3/8 and a half. You'll find the one that you want in that. 3/8 is better, obviously, for throwing like really, really, really shallow. Like down when we were in Florida fishing at really shallow water at Okeechobee, you wanted a 3/8. Then you go to somewhere like Bull Shoals Lake in North Arkansas, and you're bombing a spot remover out across points. I'm gonna throw a 1/2 ounce because I'm fishing it from 3 feet all the way out to 10 feet, and I got a big depth range that I'm trying to trigger a bite from. That's early spring when that's going on, and throwing that thing out there in really long cast. But I'm covering a lot. If I'm fishing that thing strictly in like 2-3 foot, I'm gonna throw a 3/8. If I'm going deeper than that or trying to get down to stuff, then I'm gonna start leaning into that 1/2 ounce side of things.
And when would you want to throw like one of those super heavy ones?
Deep grass lines around here is when I throw it the most. Like in Washita, we'll have like those 10-foot topped out hydrilla lines out here around like Hotel Islands and things like that. It's just one of our big areas the grass plays, but it's hydrilla. It grows up from 15 to 18. It grows up and tops out at 10, and I'm bombing a 3/4, 1 ounce, sometimes a 1.25 if the wind's blowing real hard, and slow rolling that thing and ticking that grass. I mean, I'm trying to fish it deep. And I'll also throw that 1 ounce and that 1.25 on like Gunnersville ledge fishing and stuff. I wanted to get quick and slow roll it through those schools. That's another thing as well. Or even yo-yoing it down there
Fun.
with the current and all those things. There's lots of factors, but it's just, man, we've got everything now in the chatterbait world covered, and we're really about to have everything covered when this little juice morsel comes out from Z-Man. So
Z-Man's got it locked down, man.
I know, and it's like it's like I said, you could write a book over it, but it's like people that want to get into chatterbait fishing, I'm like, just go all in on it. Like you're gonna catch fish from one end of the country on it.
Oh yeah,
Just all in on it.
it's honestly like when they're on it, I'm like, this is so much fun. And then I set it down. I'm like, why did I ever set it down?
Yeah.
Because I want to go throw a glide bait or I want to go throw a
Mhm.
mag draft in the same spots. Because quote unquote, right, you're gonna catch bigger fish, but
Right.
bladed jig catches giants.
No doubt. No
So,
doubt.
all right. So I got two more questions for you here, Bo. And I'm gonna cut you loose, right? So this one could lead to a rabbit hole as well, but I don't see people doing this one enough, and I'm just curious on your thoughts on it. But trimming the skirt of a bladed
Mhm.
jig, why should people do it more, or is it not important?
I don't really ever catch myself trimming the skirt unless I'm at a really grindy, smaller fishery. Like you take me to the Red River, you're fishing for a little bit smaller fish. It's really tough, just kind of grinding type fishing. Uh, I'll find myself cutting down a skirt a little bit, throwing on a little bit more compact trailer, trying to make it really, or if they're short striking the bait, I'll do that sometimes too, is because I'm very big on not throwing a trailer hook on a chatterbait.
Right.
But I'll cut down the skirt and throw a little bit more compact trailer in instances where I feel like they're short striking, not eating it real good. Uh, Truthfully, in my mind, I always feel like it's a color thing. If they're short striking and not eating it good, uh, because I always feel like if they're biting it at all, there's a color that's really, really dominant that day. Uh, but as a whole, I'll find myself cutting it down if I'm fishing tough fisheries.
Got it. Yeah, I'm always trimming it down, but I think it's because most of our fish up here, they're smaller bait fish, like our bluegills and
Yeah.
most lakes are
No.
smaller, our minnows are smaller, right? So it's like I need to make this look like what's in the lake. Our perch in a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
lakes are 5 to 7 inches.
Right.
So
So when we were at Leech Lake last year for that Bass Open, I was throwing an Evo, and it was the crawl color that's got the copper blade on it. That's what I
mhm,
was catching them on. But I was throwing a goat on the back of it. But I was trimming that down, and then I was trimming down my skirt, and I didn't catch all my fish in the tournament on this, but it was something. It was the chatterbait that I was throwing that week. And I was trimming down that trailer, and then I was trimming down that skirt a little bit, and it made it just a little bit more compact because the crawfish were not that big, and we're fishing for smallmouth. So, there's instances when the forage is the biggest thing. Like you said, if you're fishing for bluegill that are that big, it's something to think about whether they're that big.
right. Yeah. Just it's so technical. A lot of people think they can just cast it out and reel it in and catch them, which you can,
Mm.
but there's a lot of little nuances that go into
Yeah,
it too. So
it's a dangerous game to get into chatterbait fishing because next thing you know, you're spending way too much money. You're sitting out in the shop, messing with stuff too much, and next
now,
thing you know, wife and kids are gone because you done sat out there and messed with chatterbaits all night.
wouldn't you just say in general fishing is a dangerous game because
Yeah,
each little
100%.
technique has like its list of rabbit holes that you can go down. Like I don't know which one might be like the least vicious, right? Might be a Ned
Yeah,
rig for all I know. Like,
yeah.
'cause-
Just crappie fishing and don't
yeah,
get anything.
no, because even that's technical, right?
Right,
How guys have spreader rigs of 4 different live
right,
scopes going on each corner. That's expensive. I'd rather bladed jig fish.
right, right,
Like I'm not anti-forward facing. I love it, right? Like I
right.
just got a sniper scalp hole cover for my helm that I can use
Mm.
with guide clients, so it's gonna be really cool. But here comes the last question, Bo. But the Lure Lab is presented by Omnia, so It's the Omnia juice of the week. And it's, if you had one bladed jig in color to throw all year, all around the country, which one would it be and why?
Chatterbait Tungsten Evo and Green Pumpkin 3/8 ounce with a Green Pumpkin Chatter Shad trailer on the back end of it. That's just your perfect middle ground of, I said earlier about the three colors: white, green pumpkin, black, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
Green pumpkin's smack in the middle of both of those. I mean, it's a white for this side of things, black and blue for this side of things. Green pumpkin kind of could cover both sides, but it covers the middle. You can fish it for bluegill, crawfish, the whole 9 yards. Literally from one end of the country to the other. Dirty water to clear water, you're going to have it all covered. If there was one chatterbait that I was going to throw, it would be a 3/8 ounce Tungsten Evo Green Pumpkin. And I mean, if you want to, you could buy a 3/8 ounce jackhammer as well and do the same exact, and it would fall in the same category. But in my boat, I would pull out the Tungsten Evo.
Fair enough. I like that.
I mean, it's just a staple. I mean, it is. I mean, you go look out. So, like in my shop, I'll have.
Isn't your shop right behind your phone at the moment?
Yeah, my kitchen island and it's just covered in chatterbaits. As bad as that sounds, that's what it looks like. But in my shop, I have a wall of, what I would call dead soldiers of just chatterbaits that have been ran out, retired chatterbaits, square bills that have just destroyed. And if you looked out through that wall, you would see more Green Pumpkin jackhammers and Evos out there than you could shake a stick at. I mean, you can kind of start to tell. You can look through it and tell that I'm a bladed jig fisherman, but that Green Pumpkin is just, there's lots of retired Green Pumpkin chatterbaits out there.
I love that. I think that's one color I own the least of. Like, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a big black guy. So I'm like, if they're going to eat the Green Pumpkin, in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to get a bigger bite on black and nobody else is throwing it. Now everyone can throw it. So it kind of sucks. But, or I'm throwing just plain white. Like,
yeah,
just white works all the time.
You got black and blue, white, and green pumpkin would be my, like I said, would be my three. And then there's lots of other. I mean, I know guys will.
There's like what, 30 different colors?
I don't even know. Too many. I mean, almost too many. But I mean, I know people will listen to this, then they'll go like, "Well, I saw he was throwing a clear water shatter. I saw he was throwing, a golden shiner or a spot remover here and there." It's like, yeah, but I was trying to dial
situational.
It so specifically to where I was going into those. But if there was three or one, the Green Pumpkin, it would work just about wherever you were. Tournament guys, you have to think about tournament guys are going to get so nitty gritty with their details that we can't carry three colors and be like, this is it. We've got to be too technical with everything, which is good and bad in a way.
And there is one added bonus to Green Pumpkin. It's that if you have like spike it markers or dip too, you can really get crazy with your trailer.
You can.
What you want.
And I mean, just the trailers in general, you can throw on the back end of it to make it.
Totally. Too many options. Make your head spin.
Like I said, I could write a book over chatterbait fishing. I feel like bladed jig fishing because, it's just. And don't think that just because we're talking about this, there's not. Other good bladed jigs out there. Just I wouldn't throw any of them if I'm being honest. I'm not trying to pick any bones with anybody, but I mean, let's be honest. There's one company that really makes the best chatterbaits out there, and that's Z-Man. Obviously, the partnership with Evergreen, the jackhammer, and then the Evos and all that good fun stuff. And there's good JDM ones out there. I've played around with everything. You've got the Jackal brake blades, if you can find them, that's a really good one. But the hook's a little bit too light wire for me, if I'm being honest, for the setups that I
had the same issue. I bent 2 hooks out. I was like, yep, never again.
On the brake blades?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's there's certain little things. I think Raid Japan makes a good one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a good one. But it's just, it's not a jackhammer, a tungsten Evo, and all that good fun stuff. That's why I see people diving off into like the JDM world with bladed jigs, and it's like, man, we've got we've got the best stuff right here. I
Right.
mean, you can go to Omnia and order, or
All of
Tackle,
it.
whatever it might be, and order the best of the best here in the U.S. and
Yeah.
have it the next day. It's like, let's not overthink it to that extent, but there's a lot. There's already so much you can overthink when it comes to chatterbait fishing that let's not overthink where we need to order them from.
Let's keep it simple to the fact of just order them
Yeah,
in house,
let's at least
right? And
think
then start getting crazy
behind
with
it.
your trailers.
Yeah,
It's good
yeah.
advice. It's real
No,
good advice.
no.
Well, Beau, I want to say thank you for joining me
Thank you.
today on this and coming on and spewing your book here on the Lure Lab. We greatly appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing the future copy of the hard
Yeah.
written version of this podcast. And yeah, good luck the rest of the
Thank
year. And I'll probably see you down in Texas. So
you. No doubt. Thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you. We'll chat soon. And that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode here on the Lure Lab, as always, presented by Omnia. And if you missed it at the beginning, all the links to the baits are listed down below. So click on those links, head over, use Sirius 10 at checkout. You're going to be able to save yourself 10% off of your order. And don't be afraid to check out the Omnia Premium Pro. I believe it's $50. And then if you sign up for that, you get 10% back on everything that you buy. So what a great way. You can save 10% with our code and get 10% back so you can buy more tackle here in the future. But anyways, if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave a review if it allows you to do so. It allows the Lure Lab to be seen by more people who are looking to get into bass fishing or just want to learn more about specific techniques to help put more bass in the boat, kayak, or even on the bank. If you're watching on YouTube and your first time here and you're not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it. Leave comments down below what your favorite bladed jig is. We appreciate all the feedback every episode, everyone who tunes in. You all rock, but stay tuned for next week's episode.